The restaurant was a stage that night, every table a tiny world of laughter and soft conversations. Golden light spilled from the chandeliers above, catching in the crystal glasses and the polished cutlery. Amidst it all moved Elijah, a young waiter with tired eyes and dreams that had long since grown quiet. He wove between the tables with practiced grace, each movement a dance born of necessity. The guests barely noticed him, he was just another part of the evening's scenery. But for Elijah, each smile he forced, each dish he carried, was a small act of survival. His mother's medical bills were waiting at home, along with the drafty little apartment where his younger brother slept, wrapped in layers to keep warm against the cold. Yet here, beneath the restaurant's elegant glow, he was invisible. A polite ghost, tending to the comfort of those who never saw the lines of worry etched into his face. As the night wore on, the last guests began to drift away, their laughter lingering in the air like a faint perfume. Elijah moved to clear the final table, wiping away the last traces of the evening's festivities. That was when he saw it, an envelope, half hidden in the shadows of a leather-bound chair. He paused, frowning. It wasn't a receipt or a careless napkin, no, this was something deliberate. The envelope was heavy, sealed with a wax crest that gleamed faintly in the soft light. His heart skipped. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands. The last will and testament of Edward Hollingsworth. Elijah's breath caught. Edward had dined there that night, a frail old man with kind eyes and a voice that trembled like an autumn leaf in the wind. Elijah had seen the loneliness in Edward's gaze, a flicker of something deeper. Now, in his hands, he held the old man's final words. A battle raged in his chest. His own debts pressed in around him like cold water. The temptation was a whisper in the darkness, no one would know. No one would blame you. But something stronger pushed back, a memory of his mother's voice telling him to be a good man, no matter how hard the world tried to make him otherwise. He couldn't ignore it. The will was meant for someone, a woman named Clara, mentioned in a single line of delicate script. A relative lost to time, someone who might be waiting for a miracle she didn't even know was hers. Elijah's hands trembled as he tucked the envelope carefully into his jacket. He would find her, he promised himself. Even if it meant no one believed him, even if it meant no one cared. He would find Clara. Outside, the city pulsed with life, indifferent and cold. But inside the restaurant, beneath the fading glow of the chandeliers, Elijah took a deep breath. The choice he made that night would ripple outward, a single act of kindness that could change everything. And so, with the weight of a stranger's legacy pressed against his heart, he stepped into the darkness, determined to bring the lost will to its rightful home. The next morning dawned cold and gray, the kind of day that felt heavy even before the sun rose. Elijah barely slept, haunted by dreams of the envelope in his jacket pocket and the woman whose name he could not shake. Clara Hollingsworth. A name that was both a mystery and a promise. As he made his way to the restaurant, the city's noise pressed in around him, car horns, hurried footsteps, and the hollow cries of vendors in the street. It all felt distant, like a world he was no longer part of. The envelope was a heartbeat in his chest, a secret he carried alone. At the restaurant, Mr. Franklin was already there, counting the morning's deliveries with a scowl etched deep into his features. Elijah hesitated, then approached him. "Mr. Franklin," he said softly, the words tasting foreign in his mouth. "I need to show you something." Franklin barely glanced up. "Make it quick, Elijah. We have a busy lunch crowd today." Elijah swallowed, pulling the will from his pocket and placing it on the table. The manager's eyes narrowed as he read the neat, careful script. "A will?" Franklin asked, his voice flat. "Why are you bringing this to me?" "It was left behind last night," Elijah said, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "Edward Hollingsworth, he left it. It names an heir, a woman named Clara. I think she's supposed to inherit everything he had." Franklin leaned back, a skeptical frown twisting his lips. "And what does that have to do with us, Elijah?" We're not in the business of playing lawyer. Elijah's heart sank at the dismissal. But it's important. She deserves to know. Franklin sighed, folding his arms. Do you really think it matters? This will, who knows if it's even real? It's probably just some old man's fantasy. Let it go. The words stung like ice. Let it go. Elijah wanted to, he wanted to walk away, to bury his head in the endless cycle of empty plates and polite smiles. But he couldn't. Clara's name was etched into his mind like a vow he couldn't break. He left Franklin's office feeling hollow, but determined. If no one else would help him, he would do it alone. Days turned into nights as he searched. In the back corners of libraries, in the hushed whispers of city records, he chased the ghost of a woman he'd never met. Each false lead was a cut, each dead end a bruise. His own life was unraveling, his mother's medicine running low, his brother's wide-eyed questions he could no longer answer. But every time he thought about giving up, he remembered Edward's quiet, tired smile. He remembered the promise he'd made to himself in the glow of the chandeliers. One rainy evening, Elijah found her name, Clara Hollingsworth, in an old address book at the city clerk's office. The ink was faded, but the name was real. A thread of hope in a world that seemed determined to snuff it out. He walked home in the rain, the city a blur around him. With each step, he felt closer to something bigger than himself, a purpose that warmed him even as the cold soaked his clothes. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow, he would find Clara. And he would bring her the hope she never knew was waiting for her. The next morning, Elijah stood outside the crumbling apartment building listed in the old address book. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean but still cold. His breath fogged in the chill air as he looked up at the faded numbers above the doorway, his heart thundering in his chest. Inside, the hallway smelled of mildew and forgotten dreams. He climbed the stairs slowly, each creaking step echoing in the narrow stairwell. He thought of Clara. Was she kind? Was she lonely, like Edward had been? What would she say when a stranger knocked on her door carrying the last wishes of a man she might not even remember? He found her door, 3B, and knocked softly. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time, the sound of his knuckles on wood like the beat of his own pulse. Finally, the door cracked open. A young woman stood there, her face pale and cautious. She was wrapped in a thin sweater, her eyes tired but alert. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice uncertain. Elijah swallowed, the words catching in his throat. "Clara Hollingsworth," he said quietly. She nodded. "Yes, that's me." He took a deep breath and reached into his jacket, pulling out the envelope. "I'm Elijah. I work at the restaurant where Edward Hollingsworth used to dine. He left this behind. It's his will. He named you as his heir." Her eyes widened, a flicker of disbelief and fear passing across her face. "I don't understand." "Edward? He was my uncle. But we haven't spoken in years." "Are you sure?" Elijah nodded, holding the envelope out to her. "I found it the night he passed away. It's real, Clara. He wanted you to have everything." She took the envelope with trembling hands, her breath quick and shallow. Tears welled in her eyes as she opened it, reading the delicate script that named her, over and over, as the rightful heir. For a moment, she said nothing, just stood there, the weight of those words crashing over her like a wave. Then she looked up at Elijah, her eyes glistening. Why did you bring this to me?" she whispered. "You could have kept it. No one would have known." Elijah shook his head, his voice soft but certain. "Because it wasn't mine to keep. He wanted you to have it. And I couldn't. I couldn't let his last wish be forgotten." A single tear slipped down her cheek, and she reached out, her fingers brushing against his in a silent thank you. In that quiet hallway, surrounded by cracked paint and flickering lights, something shifted. Elijah felt the burden of his own struggles lift, just a little, replaced by the fragile warmth of knowing he had done the right thing. Clara pressed the will to her chest, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't even know he still thought of me. I didn't know anyone did." Elijah smiled faintly, his own eyes bright. "Sometimes, the people we think have forgotten us are the ones who remember us the most." And as he turned to leave, he felt a quiet certainty that, no matter how hard the world was, there would always be room for hope and for the kindness that kept it alive.